Music publishing has always been a form of banking in many ways. But in cooperation with record labels, active artists have always received from the music industry banking system more than banking. They've got 1, editorial guidance, 2, financial support, 3, creative nurture, 4, manufacturing, 5, publishing, 6, marketing, 7, distribution, 8, payment of royalties. Today, if we look solely at iTunes, we see a publishing model that only offers the last 2 items as a guarantee, distribution and banking, with some marketing thrown in sometimes at the whim of the folks at Apple. It's a fantastic piece of software and I use it all the time. But iTunes isn't like radio. Radio's less driven by cash flow, a bit more by secondary income streams like advertising and, in the case of the BBC, subscriptions. So it needs a different image to look cool, be hip and cover a wide range of bases. Let me go over this again. There's a good reason why, just because iTunes exists in the wild west land of Facebook and Twitter, it can't provide some of the aspects of these services that I've mentioned to artists whose works it bleeds like a digital vampire, like a kind of a digital northern rock for its enormous commission, that it decides, we shall take 30%. Give me a break here, I'm going to give some tips to the iTunes team. Item 1, editorial guidance. Used to be called A&R. All they have to do is employ 20 people from the dying record business, have them respond to tracks sent in from new artists. If they feel the artists aren't bad, or are bad, or aren't ready, just say so. But have them tell the truth kindly and constructively. Guide artists to other helpful resources. Don't just send them to the wolves of blogland, where it seems to me a lot of the vilest bile comes from people who could be drunk or just nuts. A fledgling musician at the start of a career is a delicate thing, even a rapper. You'll have to take my word for that. Apple do actually have a backroom bunch of people assessing what's hot, but I don't think they have this kind of A&R power. I bet they'd love it. I bet they would. 20 John Peels inside iTunes, imagine it. Item 2, financial support. For the artists that they pick and they like and they believe in, give them free computers with music software. Give it to 500 artists a year who the 20 Apple A&R insiders feel merit it. Provide some basic training with that software. Item 3, creative nurturance. Follow the work of these 500 artists very carefully and help where you can and keep out of the way if necessary. 4, manufacturing. We don't do that anymore, really, do we? There's a bit of CDs being made and they still haven't worked out a way to get it out of its case without it all breaking. So basically, we'll call it posting stuff on the internet. Provide a place on iTunes where the artist can share their music with each other and with others. It should be like a local radio station. Yeah, give us some streaming room. Bandwidth, it's called. It's very expensive. They give us a few seconds, 30 seconds of every track. How could Quadrophenia or Tommy, with my masterpieces, would they have been heard if it wasn't for renegade radio stations in America playing it, albeit in the middle of the night, all the way through, so people could hear the whole thing. They could get the whole idea and either kind of go, rock opera is nonsense or rock opera is cool. It'll sting to pay for this bandwidth, but I think they should do it. They'll get even more aluminum love for doing so. Item 5, publishing. Help artists to protect copyrights. Don't just exploit the loopholes of grand theft. This is a minefield today. The internet is destroying copyright as we know it. So artists will, they'll inevitably lose this battle, but guide them to hang on to what they can. Otherwise, they might only ever make one record before they go back to their job as a plumber or whatever. Item 6 is marketing. Select a number of the artists from the radio station thing they've provided and sell their work on iTunes with some helpful advertising within the Apple software machine. Do this even if there's been poor public feedback. This is a John Peel moment, isn't it? Poor public feedback. How many people went as crazy for the Proclaimers, the Undertones, or the Jesus and Mary chain when John first played them on his show? I got to really love those three artists, but when he first played them, I didn't quite get it. It took me time. It sometimes takes time. So these guys have got to trust their own feelings and show that they get behind these new artists. Distribution is item 7. They need to go further. They should license the best-selling artists to other organisations like record companies, bookshops, high street, and mall-based retailers who are willing to make packages, goods you can hold in your hands and give away for birthdays and Christmas and Diwali. Share revenue with Amazon and other online music retailers. I'm not quite sure why that notion's so repellent to the aluminums. Never mind. Item 8, payment. Stop insisting on aggregators to deal with small artists because they can't be bothered with the expense of accounting for the numerous small amounts of money you've collected on their behalf. Pay direct. Why should an artist pay even more commission to an aggregator merely to get paid? For the uninformed, an aggregator in the iTunes world is a company who stand between the artist and iTunes and thus prevent Apple having to deal with the artist directly. Some of these aggregators provide some of the resources I'm pleading for, but they're really just another form of banking. What creative people want to know is that their music has been heard. They would prefer a response that was constructive than a positive or negative review. They would prefer expertise to opinion. They would like to know that the public, if they're given a chance to hear the music, had a chance to make up their own minds. They would prefer that in the long term, the public were willing to pay for their music. But looking at the John Peel model, what's clear is that just knowing there was a chance that the great man would listen, react, and offer the music on air for whatever reason was enough for a lot of budding musicians and bands. This is where we've got to be going with the internet. Musicians need to be heard and to be judged, and if possible, please, to be paid. But also, they want to believe that they had more than a single chance to get a hit. Maybe they won't, I don't know. But software systems that offer something like this will survive and prevail, I'm sure. They'll be loved and embraced by musicians of every sort, whatever happens financially.